everybody, and welcome back to another video. In this week's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys 10 tips and tricks on how to improve your studying. So without further ado, let's just get on right into the video. So tip number one, which has been featured in my previous videos, which I think you can see from here, is to use sticky notes and have them always by your table. So I always have a set of sticky notes by my study desk or wherever I'm studying, simply to help out me focusing on the things that I need to study on. Because usually when I study, I start to remember things that I need to do, and I don't want to do them in the midst of studying because usually I remember them after like 5 minutes of reading. So I write them down and then I do them on my break. Sticky notes can also be found on your computer, at least on MacBooks, so electronic reading and working does not excuse this if you don't have sticky notes on hand. Tip number two is to do a to-do list in the morning. That is when you can just write down all the things that you need to do for the day. Yeah, really, you can do it as detailed as you want or as loose as you want, but it just gives you an idea of what everything that you have to do during a day. Literally, that's it. It's simple, but I feel like every time I do a to-do list, I get more activated and do more stuff than just on days that I don't do. Plus, if I don't do a to-do list, I usually forget something, and it's not that I don't have dementia, but just sometimes you just have a lot of things to do on your list, you know? So make a to-do list in the mornings, folks. What goes a bit hand in hand with the to-do list is to make a loose schedule. Meaning that if you, for instance, have a lot of things to read, like I do as a law student, you maybe write down what are the page numbers you want to read for a week, what are the areas you want to get through during a week, and then you make a loose schedule either on your computer or then manually in your calendar, like I have been doing, like so. I recommend not making a too tight and strict one, because then you're just going to be disappointed if something comes up and you're not going to be able to stick to your schedule. So keep in mind when doing your schedule that leave there like space for things to happen, leave space for bad days, etc., so that you still feel like you're achieving a lot instead of feeling bummed out even though you've worked really hard during a week but you just didn't complete the goal that you set for yourself. So be realistic in your goals and be gentle to yourself in putting those goals. Also, a little psychology tip. Usually people who don't believe that much in themselves or have a low, not self-esteem, but tend to set very high and unachievable goals. Also, if people have a low self-belief in themselves, they tend to, on the other hand, set really easily achievable goals and don't challenge themselves enough. So try to find a balance where you set goals that are achievable but not too easily achievable, so that you have to challenge yourself, but it's not like running a 10-kilometer run every single day, but that you rather set small milestones that are achievable and that make you feel proud of yourself for accomplishing them. Tip number 4 is to decide what you want to study for today. It goes a bit hand in hand with the to-do list and with the making a loose schedule, but just deciding maybe an area that you want to go through, maybe a different schedule, or like what is it that you want to achieve for today. That goes easily hand in hand with tuning in with whether you're having a bad day or a good day. If you feel like today is going to be a productive day, you're obviously probably going to achieve more than if you wake up and are like, no, today is just not it. And I hope that you guys really listen to yourselves and allow yourself to have a looser schedule day in those days that you're really not feeling it, you know? Tip number 5 is to use active recalling as a way to study. Active recalling is a way of active learning, which is the opposite of passive learning, which you probably put together as 1 + 1. Now, I think active learning is easiest explained by explaining what is passive learning. So passive learning is simply studying your notes and revising and simply reading and not trying to actively memorize and cite from memory things that you have learned. Now, this is problematic in the situation when you're going to an exam and you're supposed to be simply relying on your memory to remember the things that you have to write into your exam and to remember the things that you've read. If you've simply read passively, you usually need a trigger in order to remember what it says on the page. So for instance, if you've been reading a page and you'd be giving like the first 3 words of a sentence, you might remember the rest of the sentence, but you're not going to remember the sentence if you're not going to be given the 3 first words because you've only been reading the area. This obviously changes and varies from individual to individual, but active learning has been proven to be a lot more efficient than passive learning. Now, you can do active learning, for instance, via mind maps or any active recalling while using simply your memory and not the textbook to remember things that you've studied. So for instance, how I do this is that I read an area, whatever I read during a day, and in the evening I try to do a mind map of all the things that I learned during that day and what I studied that day, and then I go through my notes after that and fill in the gaps of what I forgot, either just by reading and like trying to associate them with other categories so that I remember it the next time, or then by filling in the mind map. And then the next morning, before I start studying a new area, I do a mind map of the things that I studied the day before, and then once again fill it in from the parts that I might have forgotten, and then maybe put like exclamation marks on my notes and stuff that I know that these are the parts that I need to revise extra hard for the exam. This is also can be done with flashcards. That's a great example, but I feel like for a law student who has a large area of things I need to read, flashcards just don't do it. Like I have to have like maybe 3,000 flashcards, and I'm not up to that. So, but if you are, and if you're active towards that, then do it, because flashcards are great. I'm just lazy. Yeah, anything that really activates your memory and that has to challenge your brain into remembering what you've been learning. Tip number 6, which I a little bit approached before, is to really listen to your body and let yourself have days off, and let yourself have days when you do nothing if it really feels like you can't achieve something today. Mental health is incredibly important, and it should be your number 1 priority, same as your physical health. So obviously it's healthy to push yourself over a certain limit simply so that you get stuff done. But if you're just forcing yourself to study when you feel like nothing is going inside your brain, it's not going to be a very efficient studying. So maybe instead try to take a walk, or go for a walk or do some exercise if you feel like that gives you energy, or anything else that might give you an energy like boost. Maybe a nap, that could work, or just have a little mental health day off and take care of yourself, because it's definitely going to give you a great energy boost for the next day, and then you're probably going to study twice as hard as the day before. Tip number 7 is to use opposite breaks. That means that you do the opposite thing during your break than what you do when you're studying. So for instance, all I do is read and take notes. So I use a lot of my frontal cortex and my eyes. So the eyesight is in the main role. So during my break, I should do something that lets my eyes, take a break. And I don't mean taking a nap, that would be also great, but like any kind of exercise. I also sit a lot, just sit and read. So my opposite break would be to walk and to not use my eyes as actively. Meaning that I easily, maybe during a break, just would grab my phone and then play a little game, or like answer some messages or whatever, and then just maybe sit in place. Or even though I would like move around, I'd still be using my eyesight mainly because I'm responding to messages. And even though you think that going on social media could be taken as a break, it really isn't, because it doesn't let your eyes relax and it doesn't let your frontal cortex take a little break. But going for a little walk or just listening to your favorite music or whatever just uses a completely different part of your brain, and therefore it lets the other part of the brain that you use actively when studying rest. And that's when you're going to get the most out of your breaks. Now, for instance, if you're doing physical work and then want to take a break, you wouldn't just continue doing some other physical work during your break now, would you? You'd just sit down and maybe relax and try to catch your breath and let your muscles relax. So that's the same idea in studying. You don't want to continue using the same muscles that you use all the time when studying, but rather let those take a break while you're having your break and then get back to using those muscles once you've rested. Interval training, but for your brain. Number 8 is to really focus on your study space and where you are studying. Now this varies from person to person, what kind of study environment they need. Some people need complete quiet in order to concentrate, and some people need some background noises in order to focus in the best way possible. So find what that is for you and seek yourself into such an environment. For instance, if you need total silence, it might not be the best idea to go to a cafeteria and study, or a cafe in general. Whereas if you need background noise, like me, I don't need it, but it's nice, I don't mind it. For instance, going to the library, not to the silent section, helps me concentrate more because I can hear people shuffling and maybe sometimes walking around, but there is still like mainly silence. There are not people talking, because people talking very loudly obviously interrupts my concentration. Except if it's in another language than what I'm studying. For some reason that doesn't disturb me. Anyway, so find out what works for you. For instance, I also need a rather tidy study space. That's why I like going to the library, because it's always tidy there and there's not anything else that might distract me. Also, the library works for me because then I put my phone away. If I'm at home, I check my phone a lot more often than if I'm at the library, because it's just there and there's nobody to kind of oversee what I'm doing, even though there's nobody at the library either, but you have more of a social pressure to study there than at home. But find out what works for you, because I have a lot of friends who love studying at home and they simply can't study at the library, they hate it. So just try out and see what environment works best for you. Also, sometimes, for instance, I study well on trains as well. If I have enough energy, I studied incredibly well on the train ride here to Rovaniemi. And for some people, they just can't because of motion sickness. So try to find the best balance for you. Once again, number 9 is just some foods to boost your memory. So we obviously all know that fish, for instance, is great because it has a great source of omega fats, and they are a great brain booster. Same with avocados, they have a lot of omega fats. Just basically your foods, like however well you nourish your body is also however well you nourish your brain. So obviously if you're eating junk food every single day, you're probably not going to give your brain the best food possible. And also if you're malnourishing yourself, you're obviously not going to give your brain the best food possible. So keep that in mind. A healthy body equals a healthy mind. Not always, but basically if you put good foods in your body, it's at least not gonna make the general physical well-being of your brain worse. Now whatever happens inside that brain within the thoughts, that's not necessarily something that you can, fix with food, but good fatty foods, like good healthy fats, omega fats, do help your brain feel good and work as it should, especially in studying. Now, what I've been using is lion's mane's extract. There is, for instance, a coffee with lion's mane by a Finnish brand called Four Sigmatic, even though it is quite international, if I've understood correctly. Anyway, a lion's mane, at least I tested it, just haven't been using it recently for some reason, but I should now, and maybe I'll take it today. It really does boost your memory, at least I've noticed with the times I've used it. Just improves your concentration, and it's not like, I don't know if it's just fake news, but I don't think so. It really does improve your memory, and you really notice it the next day from what you've been studying, that you suddenly recall like more. It's not like, you read the whole book and then the next day you're like, wow, I remember every single detail. No, obviously not, but it does help your brain, retain information better. Another one is ashwagandha, which is a stress relief. It's used in Ayurveda quite a lot. It tastes absolutely horrible, but it really does reduce stress in your body. And stressed obviously is a no-go when thinking about your health, both mental and physical health. Stress is basically just a killer, like a mood killer, but also like anything, you've probably felt this, that stress really kills your productivity. Like a small amount of stress can be good, but the negative stress usually impacts negatively to your study experience. So ashwagandha really helps with that. Same as with exercise and, you know, whatever works for you. But for instance, for me last year, I couldn't exercise because I was exhausted and had chronic mononucleosis, so ashwagandha helped with the de-stressing of my body. Same as walking. Walking has been proven to be basically the best exercise possible. So those are a few food supplements. Also this thing called PQQ. No idea what it's short for. It's not a medicine, it's a food supplement which boosts the mitochondria in your cells to produce more energy. And then since every single cell in your body is producing more energy, you're obviously going to feel more energized. These work when taken not like every single day, meaning that if you take every second day or maybe take for a week or 2 weeks, but if you use it like every single day, it's gonna just basically become like a normal and you're not going to feel the energy boost. I used these when I was exhausted, so for all of you out there who might be suffering from exhaustion or have maybe burnout symptoms or have just brain fog in general, now that we're approaching November and December and seasonal depression, or like seasonal, you know, just feeling not the best in the same way as in during summer, PQQ definitely helps with that. So give it a try if you want to. Yeah. Lastly, my last tip number 10, is just trial and error. I can't tell you guys what's gonna work for you. You're just gonna have to go and learn it by yourself. Honestly, that's just the harsh truth. I can't tell I can't tell you what works best for you. I haven't figured out what works best for me yet, because I study differently now in university than I did in high school and in middle school and all of that. So I've just been testing out different methods to see what works for me. Right now, what works for me the best is reading from books and not electronically, and doing notes by hand and using active learning as a method. But just trial and error. There's not one efficient and the greatest way to study. It doesn't necessarily work for you. So don't punish yourself if the things that work for everybody else doesn't work for you. Find the ones that suit you the best and be gentle to yourself, and this is all a learning opportunity. And whatever you do is always towards your goal in a way. Whatever studying you put in is still studying, and you're still trying, and that's what is the most important. Those were all the tips and tricks I had for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, please remember to give it a big thumbs up as usual, and comment down below on your study tips, because I would definitely like to hear some of yours. Maybe I could incorporate them into my study routines and stuff. Anyway, subscribe for more quality content if you want to, and if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at jasusstories. And if you want to follow me on TikTok, I'll be more active there. It's at jasusstories. I also have a podcast called At Mom Friend Hotline, and I share more this kind of stuff over there with more pondering and stuff. I don't know, whatever. It's a nice podcast. Go check it out if you want to. I will see you next Monday in my next video. I hope that you guys have a great day and a great week, and I hope that you get into studying like I will now, because I'm late on starting this day. And yeah, I'll see you next Monday. Bye guys!